Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We would like to start our 39th urgent talk. Today, we have been screening The White Cube of Renzo Martens. The urgent talk is a platform for artists, curators, critics, and activists who are working on meaningful and innovative projects around the world to discuss urgent topics that need to be discussed now. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, we have been delivering this program online. In today's 39th session, we will screen the film White Cube 2020, directed by artist Renzo Martens as part of the global release program, followed by a discussion with Renzo Martens and Congolese artist Cedar Tamasala, who appears in the film, and Japanese artist Hikaru Fujii. Mami Kataoka, myself, the director of Mori Art Museum, will moderate the talk. The screening is scheduled to take 80 minutes. The talk is scheduled to follow the video, which is lasting for about 45 minutes. First of all, let me introduce our panelists. Mr. Renzo Martens. In 2012, he has been creating the Institute for Human Activity with the KASK. The IHA is focusing on the history of plantation and colonization and the critics on exploitative monoculture and to be correcting the inequality economically. And IHA, starting 2014, has been focusing on the Congolese plantation, and this is a Congo plantation, a CATPC, and been having a collaboration together. The CATPC has been creating the chocolate sculpture is now exhibited and sold all around the World Museum, and by this income, the Congolese people are rebuying their lands and they are funding and making and trying to make a production and redistribution. Mr. Martin, starting 2017, has been rebuying the land and has been settling up the White Cube Center. Today, the record of the White Cube activity was recorded on the film, and Mr. Martin's activity is a focal part of the world's artist scene today, and his activity is related to the decolonization too. Now, the second presenter or the panelist is Cedar Tamasala. In 1986, he was born in Democratic Republic of Congo in Katanga Prefecture. He completed 1 year of studies at the Académie des Beaux-Arts. He met two great figures of popular painting, Sherry Sherin and Sherry Samba, who passed on to him the desire to paint. At CATPC, he is a member and he has been a co-joint founder of the CATPC in White Cube in Lusanga. CATPC's debut solo show in the United States was included in the Best Art of 2017 list of New York Times. Other recent exhibitions include the 21st Biennale of Sydney and Kustanlo Charlottenburg in Copenhagen. Mori Art Museum, the chocolate sculpture was shown in 2018, The Catastrophe and the Power of Art. And the third person is Fujii Hikaru. Mr. Fujii is working on films, installations, workshops, and writings, exploring the relationship between art and social activism. When revisiting a specific historical incident or present-day situation involving domination and exploitation, the artist undertakes extensive research and fieldwork to explore the potential of critique over that power and the social-political system supporting it. And Mr. Fujii also has been exhibiting his artwork at Catastrophe and the Power of Art in 2018. After the film, we're going to be having a talk program, and Martin's son and Tamasera-san, along with these two people, from the perspective of Japan, thinking about the relationship with the colony and the non-colony, or the colonized or the suzerain and the colony, through the workshop, we would like to listen to Mr. Fujii from his perspective. Decolonization is related to museums activity a great deal. Therefore, we would like to discuss what we can contribute from our position. The simultaneous global distribution program of this film will be held jointly by 13 museums around the world from March 24th to April 24th, 2021 at Congo White Cube, and talks and the screening programs are also going to be taking part in other areas around the World Museum. The schedule and the museums, please confirm from the Mori Art Museum link site.
So we would like to start our talk and discussion. First of all, I would like to invite Hikaru Fujii to share your comments after watching this film. Thank you very much. Let me make a comment from my side. Well, first of all, today, during this COVID-19 pandemic, I was able to watch this film, which gave me a lot of hope. I first of all share with you this because due to the COVID-19 pandemic, structurally speaking, poor and vulnerable people are really living through hardship. And in this situation, your unique and alternative activities are giving a sense of hope. So this is my initial comment. And I myself, well, I have been trying to rethink the globalization which started at the age of exploration in the 15th century, that is starting with the expansion of the Atlantic slave trade. And I have also been trying to look at once again Japan, which has been imitating its master, namely the West. So that has been always my activities as an artist. But this is not a historical exploration of the past, but rather a challenge for the present. That is the focus. I think this is essential while I'm creating as an artist, and then I have had an opportunity to look at your opportunity, and then I really feel that the structural inequalities have been really revealed as a product of our long history that was revealed by your project. And besides, there are a lot of learnings that I was able to gain from your film. Well, here in Japan, our lives would not be possible without the palm oil produced in Indonesia or Malaysia. That is the fact. And we live at the expense of the environmental destruction caused by the development of these countries and the human rights infringement of the workers who work there under poor conditions. This fact is not unrelated to the history of these countries. And my own life and our lives are relying on this system of sacrifice. And these countries were colonies of the West and were occupied by Japan during the World War II for the purpose of Japan's acquiring goods there. So we cannot deny relationships between these two aspects. And I am not talking about somewhere far away from here, because here in Tokyo, and to be more precise, in this area where we are, the central area of Roppongi, where this Mori Art Museum is located, there are many companies that mobilize poor young people from Asia under the name of technical trainees from their home countries and force them to work under quite unfavorable labor conditions, that many countries are criticizing Japan for that and regarding human rights infringements. Many corporations are existing here promoting that. And I would like to say that this the night view that we can enjoy from this skyscraper within which Mori Art Museum resides, the night view is allowed by electricity power, which is not produced in Tokyo, but originally in Fukushima, where there were nuclear power plants operating. And that was recognized by us clearly due to the nuclear power plant accident in Fukushima. 10 years after the accident today, still more than 30,000 people are being forced to live as evacuees away from their homes, and the site and the surrounding town of the power plant is still in the darkness. So the surplus profit that can be gained from this historically structured system of sacrifice has been used to build, to maintain, and to operate museums. In other words, those white cubes. And your film, White Cube, revealed this very fact. And as a creator of an artistic work, myself also have been gaining income thanks to those museums, or in other words, the white cubes, and I have been able to raise my children. So I was also relying on this system of sacrifice. That was also put forward as a message by your film. And your activities can possibly reverse it and can overcome it. So your activity is very positive and is being full of hope. This is what I would like to tell you and convey to you as a message with my respect. And today, I'd like to share with you, first of all, some of the unique geopolitical issues that I face as an artist in Japan, before moving on to the discussion with you. So what is that? This building I am speaking in now is a 54-story skyscraper, and it is 330 meters high. And the reality here in Tokyo is that American military helicopters are roaming around 300 meters above the ground, which is slightly lower than this building. So that is the reality here in Tokyo. According to Japanese law, flying at this height over urban centers is prohibited. However, that law does not apply to the US military. It goes beyond the Constitution. This extrajudicial state of exception by the US military has been routine ever since the post-war GHQ occupation days. And one of its keys, as policy keys, was to make Japan forget its colonialism. Well, it also meant to sweep away militarism, but at the same time, universities and research institutes that were studying colonial policies of Japan have been shut down one after another, and even the history of Japan's colonization of Asia has been a taboo subject for such a long period of time. And this history of colonization by Japan has become made a taboo, so that was even impossible to reflect upon that history. And Japanese government and business circles have been promoting such a culture. I also would like to point this out. And now, we, in a not too distant past, what Japan did in those colonized areas in Asia, we are ignorant of that. And even the proven historical facts are denied publicly. And also, the post-war-born ultra-nationalists who openly deny those proven historical facts and praise Japanese past colonial policies have grown to the point that they can influence the very heart of the government and business world. We are in the midst of such a reality. Unlike many art museums in Japan, Mori Art Museum is unique because many of Japanese art museums are not independent of government agencies. They are not independent from the administration, the government. So, current political moves and political bodies can easily influence those art museums in Japan in general. They are very unstable in that sense. So those public art museums of Japan, those white cubes, on one hand, and post-colonial white cube, on the other hand, the type of white cubes that you are promoting along with decolonization, can current Japanese public white cubes be turned into your type of white cubes, and in order to have a positive discussion for some positive development and growth? Is it ever possible? I have to admit that I don't really feel that that is possible being in Japan, really. However, the deliberately prepared forgetting of colonialism of Japan, in other words, internalization of colonialism, is perhaps happening in Congo as well. I think that because I was inspired, first of all, by watching many films made by French cinema director Jean Rouge. So, locally internalized colonialism in Congo, doesn't it having an impact as being a suppression or a threat against what you are trying to promote? Isn't it the case? Or perhaps you are beyond that already, you have already overcome that, so that the system that you have been developing is penetrating across the country of Congo. Is that the stage you have already reached by today? Is that so that's my first question that I would like to ask to you. Thank you.
Maybe you ask Mr. Renzo to answer, please.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting us, for inviting me, for inviting my colleagues, Cedar, Tamasala. Next to him, you see Mathieu Kasiyama, who is the hero of the film. And to the left, you see Eleonore Helio, who is also deeply involved in the project. We are all in this together, and I'm so grateful that the Mori Art Museum and the director, Mami Kataoka, was so kind to invite us. So thank you very, very much. I remember that Cedar and we were at the Mori Art Museum maybe 2 years ago when the works of CATPC, in particular sculptures that were made by Cedar, a portrait of his grandfather, was exhibited in the Mori Art Museum, indeed in chocolate. And Cedar and I looked over the skyline of Tokyo, and we were, of course, very impressed. We did not know that American military helicopters could fly over and we would be in danger. Luckily, we did not know that. But anyway, I'm so grateful that we are here with you. Thank you so much. Now, it is Mathieu Kassiama, who sits in Lusanga right now. You see him, who says at the end of the film White Cube that if he has to choose between art or land, he wants his land. Because it is great that many museums around the world are now decolonizing, right? They are becoming inclusive. They are becoming diverse. And other stories are now being told. Also stories not just from the winners of globalization, but also stories from the people who are indeed victimized by colonialism and everything. So this is very important and it's long overdue. But as I try to point out in the film, many of these museums have been funded historically by plantations and by mines. And White Cube's museums are only in the places where a lot of that capital was accumulated. There, people are rich enough to also invest in art. And I think it would be great if art can not only be at the top of the value chain, but also at the other points of the value chain on plantations. And it would be quite logical because so much art was stolen from these very regions. You can see this also in the film. You can see it in New York or in Berlin, maybe in Tokyo, I don't know. So the thing that we're trying to do together is not a small thing. It's not just about building one White Cube or having 100 hectares of land. I don't have them. CATPC has the land, of course. I don't need land in Congo. I don't want it even. But the task ahead is much bigger. It is both indeed changing something in museums that we can try and make sure that some of the benefits of becoming inclusive, of becoming diverse, of becoming decolonial, that some of these benefits can be shared with people who still live and work on plantations here and now. Not 100 years ago. That happened a lot of slavery on plantations. But here and now, the labor conditions are still very bad. So I think the benefits of decolonization should be shared with people who live on plantations here and now. And not just in Lusanga, because you see in the film, in Lusanga, people like Mathieu and Cedar and Irene Kanga and Bukunkimpala, they work for themselves. They are living maybe not in the best of conditions, but they are not controlled by some bosses living in London and calling by phone, no, the salaries are too high, you should lower the salaries. $10 a month, $20 a month, that's enough. Luckily, they don't live like that, but many other people do. So when Mathieu Tamasala at the Mathieu Kassiama at the end of the film says, we want the four corners of Congo, then we are just at the very, very beginning of this. And the White Cube is just like a token, a little first step to do something far more important, which is to decolonize not the White Cube, but to decolonize the plantation, and not just one plantation, but all the plantations. So we are at the very, very beginning.
Mr. Cedar and Matthew Kassiama, what is your impression and what are your thoughts on White Cube now? So maybe it is about the new ecology that you have started on board. Do you think everything is going smoothly?
Déjà, avant de commencer, je voulais dire merci d'avoir pensé à nous, à nous inviter. Nous, les CATPC, représentés ici par moi et Mathieu. Le White Cube à Lusanga, c'est un début c'est le début d'une nouvelle pensée, une nouvelle direction à prendre par rapport au passé. Ça veut dire que dès le départ, il y a eu l'apport des gens de la plantation, mais sauf que tous les gens de la plantation ont été exclus de tout cela, de comment ça se fonctionne, de toute l'économie qu'il y a tout autour, et puis voilà. Et là, les gens de la plantation que nous sommes, nous sentons, nous nous sommes toujours sentis concernés par cette chose, et on veut s'y mettre. Et prendre aussi ces white cubes et en faire quelque chose pour nous, le prendre comme un outil déjà, et de lui donner une nouvelle direction, un autre sens, et qui serait se démarquer de l'injustice du passé déjà. Et puis voilà. Et puis le mettre dans un contexte de réconciliation, d'harmonie avec la plantation qu'il a financée au départ. Et le fait qu'il soit là, Lusanga, dans la première plantation d'Unilever au Congo, ça a beaucoup de sens. Et pour nous, maintenant, nous, artistes africains aujourd'hui, qui n'avons pas, comment dire, eu l'occasion ou nous n'avons pas pu, comment dire, depuis toujours, pas seulement de Lusanga, d'ailleurs même de l'Afrique, nous n'avons pas pu entrer librement, aller vers ces musées, ces institutions, à trouver une place justement, voilà. Et là, on essaie de prendre le destin avec nos ambitions, nos rêves, essayer de trouver aussi notre place dans ce monde de l'art, essayer de nous rapprocher des autres, de ne plus se sentir exclus, et de aussi contribuer justement à cette grande table de débat qui est aussi, qui inclut toutes les personnes, et les gens qui sont en haut, et les gens de la plantation, et les gens qui sont aussi en train de bénéficier les produits ou les fruits du travail de la plantation. Donc, c'est ça, c'est une nouvelle ère qui demande que tous soient inclus, et pas seulement les gens qui bénéficient, mais les gens aussi qui sont aussi les fournisseurs, les gens qui sont au départ à l'action pour que tout cela, ça marche. Donc, voilà.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you in the name of CATPC. For us, the white cube is the beginning of a new thought, a new way of thinking, and of a new direction from the past. All plantation workers have been excluded from all aspects in the past. And we feel very concerned by that. And we want to act upon it. We are viewing or taking the white cube as a tool. And we want to change its meaning and the direction it had historically been taking. We want to use it to re-equilibrate justice and harmonize it with the plantation. Unilever started its first plantation here in our region. We want to think not only of this plantation, but of all the plantations in Africa and in the world, not only the one in Lusanga started by Unilever. We want to use the white cube to have a space, to reacquire our own space and write a new destiny. With our dreams and with our desires. And we wanted to contribute to everybody, from the bottom to the top and to the top of the bottom. We want to set up a new era of inclusive, of a world that would be more inclusive.
Well, thank you. Only one point. You said that you mentioned harmonization with the plantation. What do you mean by it specifically? What makes an harmonization between you, your project, and the plantation?
Déjà, le fait qu'on a déjà été exclu, la plantation, les gens de la plantation et la plantation, le fait qu'il y a beaucoup de gens déjà dans le discours qu'on vient d'écouter, il y a beaucoup de gens qui ne sont même pas au courant que c'est la plantation, les plantations dans le monde qui tiennent beaucoup d'économies, qui tiennent par exemple, qui ont aidé à construire les Y-Cubes. Et le fait déjà que le musée soit dans la plantation, c'est un début pour que tous se sentent inclus et que aussi, avec ces débats, avec ces rapprochements de tous les gens, qu'on puisse avoir un aperçu clair de la vraie situation sur terrain, de la vraie situation entre les relations entre les gens, les riches et les pauvres, les puissants et les faibles. Donc, c'est un éclairage. Et cet éclairage, déjà, ramène une certaine paix parce que les oubliés, les sacrifiés, ils se sentent aussi concernés cette fois-ci. Les oubliés de la plantation, les enfants des anciens planteurs qui ont sacrifié toute leur vie. On est concernés et c'est un début des réconciliations. Pour moi, je pense que on ne verra plus le Y-Cube comme quelque chose qui nous a marché dessus, mais on le verra aussi quelque chose comme lequel on a contribué à la construction, à la création, et aussi quelque chose qu'on peut aussi utiliser pour nous, et avec nos ambitions, avec nos rêves. Voilà.
Okay. The fact that we have been excluded, not many people know in the world that the plantation has been such an economic power and contributed to the development of the West. Not many people know that. And it's been too long that us who have been plantation workers, we've been sacrificing and we've been forgotten. Us, the children of the workers for many years, the children and grandchildren of workers that have built the West. So our lives have been sacrificed, but now our generation, we want to find a way to reconcile people and to contribute to the world awakening. And we want to contribute with our intelligence and creativity.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much. So, reconciliation is a word that impressed me strongly. During the first part of the film, Renzo arrived in Congo and filming a movie or building a project with a white cube. You had a lot of difficulties and you were actually eventually excluded from the first plantation you tried to do it. So that was a great disappointment. You created previously your first film, Enjoy Poverty, and then you even after that, continued your activities. I think it required you to have a lot of commitment and determination. So what was the motivation, such a strong motivation for you, Renzo? Can I ask you to elaborate it on further?
Thank you for the question. So I'm an artist. I grew up in the Netherlands and in Belgium and in France. And my primary interest is really art. I really love art, and I like making art. I like going to museums and everything. I'm very much interested in something that is called in the art institutional critique, finding out how does the art world operate. So not looking only at beautiful artworks that one can hang in the museum, but also what is the construction, what are the fundamentals of this apparatus within which we can then look at beautiful art. And it was out of that line of thought that I went to Congo in the first time, I think in 2004. So indeed, it's like 17 years ago. Because I knew that this colony existed, the former colony of Congo, that it existed. And I knew that many museums had been funded by these mines and plantations. I had read about it a little bit. And I thought, if there is so much money, if every brick of museums in Amsterdam or in London or in Berlin, if every brick is in fact a bag of cocoa or a bag of tobacco that is taken away from the colonies, from Ghana or from Congo or from Indonesia, to then build museums with that, then in fact, the museum is part of the plantation. So I wanted to understand how this works, really out of not just moral ideas or like, I need a just and equal world. No, my first intention was, I want to understand how art is organized. Now, we know there's a long tradition of artists who figure out how does the paint work, how does the canvas work, how do I do the brush strokes. This is all good. I work in the same way. If the museum is built by bags of cocoa or tobacco shipped from former colonies to rich cities to build museums, then the museum is really built not with, then it is similar. It's like the painting has been made with paint and with a brush. In the same way, the museum has been built with bags of cocoa. So I want to understand this. I want to go deeper into it. And that's how I first went to make this film, Enjoy Poverty. That was a very difficult film. I like it a lot, but it's very harsh, very aggressive in a way. There is no solution. And then I thought, well, if I want to continue to live, I need to try and work on a solution. And I tried. In the beginning of White Cube, you see how I try, but I'm completely mistaken. Everything goes wrong. And it only started to work when I met with René Ngongo, who is the president of CATPC. I met with Eleonore. I met with all the people who are now speaking to you in Lusanga. And then, because it became a joint effort, I had my few little ideas. René had some ideas. Cédar, Mathieu, the other members. Eleonore had some ideas. And in this way, something started to build. And then this is the project. We asked our friend Darek Tuba to film everything with the camera. I put it together. Okay, that's the film. But it really is about a project in reality. And the project in reality can only take place because there are so many types of intelligences weaving together. I think about institutional critique. Cédar thinks about the history of plantations and what his desires for the future. René thinks about René Ngongo, who you also see in the film. He said, well, if the members of CATPC are going to make money with their art, then what can we do with the money? Maybe we shouldn't spend it on, I don't know, nice Yamamoto clothes. No, let's buy back our own land. That was the idea of René and of Mathieu. So many types of intelligence come together. My initial impulse was understanding what constitutes art. What are the constituting elements of art? How is art made? and what finances it? Where is it possible, and for whom?
So when you are related into art and you create your art piece and then you sell and the proceeds that you get are turned into land, that's one process that I could think of. But art exchanged into land, but are there anything much more benefit than just purchasing back the land? Are there anything more to art than just purchasing back the land? Was the question.
Oui. Oui, bien sûr que oui, il y a un bénéfice à racheter la terre. Quand on considère que...
Non, c'est pas ça la question.
C'est quoi?
Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres bénéfices que celui de racheter la terre?
Ah,
Pas racheter la terre.
ok. S'il y a d'autres bénéfices en dehors de racheter la terre?
Oui,
oui.
Dans ce projet.
Ok, ah oui. Merci, je n'avais pas bien compris la question. Oui, il y a, bien sûr, il y a d'autres bénéfices en dehors de racheter la terre. Déjà, la terre, elle est rachetée grâce aux bénéfices de l'art, notre art vendu. Et ces bénéfices ne sont pas que pour acheter la terre. Il y a une bonne partie qui est qu'on se partage entre nous, les membres du CATPC. Il y a une autre partie qui va vers des projets communautaires, des projets communautaires, donc des projets pour nous en groupe, où on décide ensemble sur quoi on va attaquer pour pouvoir ramener des besoins qu'on a ici sur place, mais qu'on est obligé soit de se ravitailler ailleurs, par exemple faire notre propre savon nous-mêmes, ou envisager par exemple de faire une miellerie avec nos abeilles qu'il y a dans les arbres, les nombreux arbres que nous avons eu à planter ces années qu'on a travaillé. Donc oui, à part planter la terre, on a aussi d'autres choses qu'on a réalisées, qu'on est aussi en train de réaliser. Donc voilà.
Yes, of course, there are many other benefits, some of which are financing collective projects that we decide together among the CATPC members. Like, for example, we are in the process of thinking of doing a small soap factory. We would like also, and we started to experiment with that, to do our own honey with the trees that we've planted.
I think that maybe the question is also, is the art only useful because it buys back things, or is it also useful for other reasons? Est-ce que c'est peut-être utile spirituellement, artistiquement? Est-ce que c'est que pour gagner de l'argent, ou est-ce qu'encore il y a des autres choses qui vous intéressent dans l'art? Je pense que c'est ça aussi la question.
D'accord. En regardant le film, on voit Mathieu à New York où il touche sur les sculptures. Et en touchant sur les sculptures, il dit qu'il a pris la force des sculptures, ce que nous appelons l'Uyalu. Il a pris cette force, il a ramené la force à Lusanga. Et cette force-là, qui a nourri l'esprit de nos anciens à créer, à avoir une culture forte. Elle a disparu depuis plusieurs décennies, elle n'existait plus. Et nous, on peut dire qu'on est en train de la récupérer, cette force. On l'a récupérée pour continuer la pratique et oui, pour résister avec notre identité. Voilà.
Okay. Yes, when you see in the film Matthew, he's touching an object that has been taken from Congo and in New York, in the Met in New York. He had the chance to touch an object from his ancestors, and by touching it, it was a way from him to take back the power that's within this ancestral object. This power, we've been calling it between ourselves, the Luyalu. It has many different meanings, but mainly it's a form of power. And it's a power that has disappeared with the colonial empire. And so we are taking it back, and with it we want to resist and rebuild our own identity.
Thank you very much. So that power that you talked about, well, how can I say, was that your original pride, dignity perhaps? I think that's part of it. And then I would like to ask a question to Renzo as well as to Fujii-san. So, viewing from the side of the colonizers as people who were born in countries which used to be colonizing countries. For those artists, I think it's very difficult journey to go to a former colony countries to do art creation. But you have been practicing that. You have been doing that. So while doing so, what were the aspects or points you were paying particular attention to, and what were your learnings?
Well, thank you. So yes, as somebody who's I grew up in a society that has colonized other countries. Indonesia, of course, was colonized by the Netherlands. But I also lived in Belgium and France as a child, so much of Africa has been colonized by Belgium and France. And I have the physical aspects of a Dutch guy, for sure. I'm a white Dutch guy. And so whether I like this or not, I will always be part of that history of colonization. I still benefit from it. The reason why in the Netherlands there is a great, not just one, maybe 5 or 10 good art schools, nice universities, and even children of working class people like me can go there and study art. In many other countries, in Congo, in Indonesia, there is no way you can go study art if your parents are not rich. So I benefit in that way, that because the country I grew up in became very rich through colonization and everything that came after, neo-globalism. I don't know what the term is in Japanese, but that's why I can make art at all in places like Congo. That's why I can get a visa, why I can pay the ticket. So to go there. So I'm very much indebted to that history. I'm a beneficiary of it. Even if I want to work against that legacy, I still benefit from it. And I think this should be clear. I think this should be put in the open. Being a white man is not a neutral position. For a long time, we thought great artists, they are from America, they are from Germany, they are white men. They are the neutral artists. They can go to Documenta and make great art. We now know, and I know, that being a white man is not a neutral position. This neutral position, very much like the white cube that you see behind me, has been built with the work, the intelligence of other people that has been stolen. So I'm still, even if I go to Congo with good intentions and a nice idea, I'm still very much part of that colonial legacy. And it's better, I think, to confront it and to put it out in the open so people can even attack it. They can say, you're the white guy, you're evil. Good, perfect, do it. It's better to make it out in the open and confront it than to not confront it, to remain out of the image and say, oh no, I'm not here, or I'm put on my little my clothes that make me look like a nice guy. No, I want to be a representative. I am, there is no escaping, a representative of an unequal global economic apartheid, segregation. It is there, it is there. I'm part of it, I'm a beneficiary for it. I want to work against it, but I also want to take responsibility for it. So that's why, yeah, that's my one lesson. And it makes things harder sometimes. I can easily be attacked for being a white man, and it's good, it's fine. But it's very beneficial also, because it means that not just me, but everybody who, for example, looks at the film can see that a white man, me, I'm the artist in the film, and then Mathieu Kassiama becomes the bigger artist in the same film. You see that I inherit the position from Unilever. I'm like a little offspring of Unilever in a way. And it's so much better to confront that and to be able to fight it, to confront it first. And yeah, it's beneficial, I think, to put it out in the open, to say, look, this is the world the way it is. I benefit from it, and I also want to fight against it. How can we do this?
Thank you very much. How about you, Fujii-san? I myself is living in Japan and have a passport of this country, Japan, and I cannot fly away from this fact. And I can no longer flee from the history of Japan either. And by the benefit of the Japan, yes, I do admit that I have been benefited, but I would like to talk from the different perspective. Japan has colonized the Korea, now South Korea or Taiwan, or under the war, they were dominated the Asian area. And I myself traveled and to create my art piece. Within this, I am always in a difficult position because the so-called so I'm at the so-called controlling area, and I should reflect on myself, and that will make me be accepted by the local people that I am reflecting on their past deeds. But it's not that easy, is what I feel. So what I mean is, we're talking about the area that we have been controlling and to become a good, conscious Japanese people. And that's going to be connected with the nationalism of that country, meaning that the localism or the nationalism of the local area could be easily combined with such feeling. And in effect, it's going to create a dichotomy. And within that framework, the art is going to be just placed within. So how are we going to be taking some distance within this? So we should not run into to become an easy and nice Japanese person. So it is always that when I travel around Asia, those idea comes into mind. And at the local area, there's a curator that understands me, and somebody I can discuss. And there's always a person and team members that I can talk to. That's my premise.
So that's it, my answer to your question. Thank you very much. Well, time flies. I have time for one final question, but I would like to ask to each of you, three of you, this concept of white cube, as Renzo said, is neutral, and modern art can become independent from various societies and can be shown as pure art. So that used to be called place white cube. There are various white cubes, museums across the world. There are in Congo as well. So going forward, museums for the future, white cube, what do you expect from future white cubes? Not just merely being neutral or independent from the social context. What can be the self-positionings of white cubes in the future? You can include just your wishful thinking or hopes as well. So that is my final question. The same, all of you. three of you.
Thank you so much for this question. The self-positioning of the white cube. I think art is a magic wand. It can do magic. I think the white cubes so far are only in places that are wealthy. We see that also in Lusanga, it can do the same job as it does in Tokyo or in New York or elsewhere. It is to mobilize people, to attract attention, visibility, and to legitimize. That's the most important, to legitimize the people living in and around it. So I'm not against white cubes. I would like for the people who have contributed to the very existence of the white cube to also benefit from it. So it would mean, for example, that maybe in the Mori Art Museum, a part of your acquisition budget for new art could be from people who historically have funded the Japanese economy. So maybe you could acquire works of art by people who are not considered great artists, well known. Why? Because they are working and living on plantations or in mines or in sweatshops. Or does that mean they don't have a lot of creativity and a lot of great ideas? No, it doesn't. This is spread equally around the world. So I think it would be great if, for example, the Mori Art Museum would use part of its acquisition budget to not talk about inequality, but to ask people who are at the losing end of inequality to also make art and put it inside the Mori Art Museum. And then the money can go back to them and they can build their own lives. That is what I think a good white cube can do in the future. It can be a redistributive model, not just for artistic ideas, but also for agency and even for finances.
Thank you very much. Sedar-san, I would like to hear your answer at the last. So can I ask the same question to Fujii-san first? Yes. Well, what I expect from white cubes or museums, well, there are many, as a matter of fact. One of them is particularly regarding Japan, to limit the discussion to Japan, first of all, then how autonomous and independent museums can be vis-à-vis the society, I think that is a very important question being asked in the context of Japan. So I would like for the museums to secure freedom and to be able to do their activities with freedom. That is my hope and wish, but it is not part of the reality today. I want to point it out. Thank you very much.
Hey, Mr. Sedar, may I ask your comment, please?
Le white cube idéal devrait être un lieu qui rassemble, un outil, disons, qui permet de rassembler les gens, non pas les diviser, qui brise toutes les ségrégations, qui n'exclut pas des communautés entières, qui ne brise pas des cultures ou qui les efface. Les white cubes devraient aider à soulever ceux qui sont en bas, à les faire monter. Et les white cubes devraient être comme ces miroirs par lesquels on se regarde pour ne pas revenir dans les erreurs du passé. Et aujourd'hui, je pense que si il y avait l'implication de tous les white cubes dans une direction plus ou moins saine qui n'écarte pas ou qui ne disqualifie pas d'avance les gens, on pourrait arriver à cette belle proposition de Renzo de redistribution des richesses dans le monde. Ce serait chouette.
The ideal white cube should be not only a space, but also a tool to bring people together. It should be a tool that doesn't exclude people or erase other cultures. It should help people grow and not stay at the bottom. And I agree with Renzo when it says it should be a space that could redistribute money,
Oui,
that redistribute
richesse.
the richesse. How do you say richesse? The wealth, all types of wealth.
Il y a un vent aujourd'hui qui veut que les sculptures anciennes de pillées en Afrique, par exemple, lors de la colonisation, puissent revenir d'office dans de nouveaux musées qui sont construits. C'est une belle initiative qui montre un début de réconciliation ou de pas de l'un vers l'autre ou début de réparation. Mais donnons-nous un exemple, si ces objets étaient rapatriés dans un nouveau Y-Cube qui fonctionne dans le même système que celui d'avant, ça ne changerait pas grand-chose. Ça ne changerait pas grand-chose, je ne pense pas. Mais je pense que si les anciens Y-Cubes et les nouveaux Y-Cubes qui sont construits se mettaient autour d'une discussion afin de trouver une manière où tout le monde, où tous fonctionnent dans une direction qui n'exclut personne, je crois qu'on pourrait bien, en réfléchissant, on n'a pas d'office toutes les réponses, mais en réfléchissant ensemble, on arrive bien à trouver des idées qui considèrent tout le monde.
Okay. There is a wind, actually, that calls for all sculptures to come back to the countries that they've been taken from. So maybe a first step of repair and reconciliation is not necessarily that this object should be repatriated or should come back to the white cube. Maybe it wouldn't change much. Maybe there would be other ways to repair than just bring back the objects.
Oui, et une des idées, c'était que au lieu que les objets soient rapatriés et enfermés en un seul endroit, une des belles propositions serait que ces objets puissent circuler, voyager, atteindre toutes les donc entre les réseaux nouveaux des musées, que les musées et les objets qui pourraient nous distribuer aussi aujourd'hui puissent nous rassembler. Ça veut dire que si les objets sont à New York et qu'ils peuvent voyager, demain être à Tokyo et le lendemain être à Lusanga, ça c'est une belle vision du Y-Cube de demain.
Yeah. So a way that we would be more constructive to Cedric's points of view is that this object could travel and circulate around different museums in the world, including Lusanga, and that's what I wish. Not that these objects go from one museum to another, just another, and stay there and stay prisoner in a new museum, but circulate around the world and spread their knowledge.
Thank you really very much for today's event. Renzo Martens, Cedar Tamasara, and our special guest, Master Kashiyama, and then our interpreter in Congo, Elio Henero, and Hikaru Fujii. Thank you really very much. And simultaneous interpretation in Tokyo was provided by Nomoto Akemi and Takako Enso. Thank you very much.